And good Monday morning, 12 noon in the East. If you're anywhere else in the country, it's morning time for you. It's afternoon time for us here in the Charlotte area. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you very much for listening. It's Memorial Day. And, I know there's a lot of sales going on out there and things of that nature. And everybody's kind of trying to save some money and make some buys, some great buys out there. But, I think we should all just take a second or two in our daily travels to kind of take a glimpse back, think about what the day really means. I know a lot of it means a lot of fun, getting together with their families, traveling all over the country, all over the world in some instances, if you can. But, just remember, there are people that died in order to make this happen, in order for us to make it possible for us to do what we're doing this weekend. So once again, just a moment, stop and think about it, because, we owe it to them. There's no doubt about it. So it's Memorial Day. And according to some of our reports that we get, as far as our ratings are concerned, we're in many countries in the world, and every country has been through battles, through wars, and gotten to a certain position now in their lives. And even if you're living in Sweden, or if you're in Costa Rica, or anywhere, England, or wherever you happen to be right now, just again, sometime today, just stop for a minute and think of what today is all about. Okay, don't want to get political. I'm not getting at it from a political standpoint, just from the standpoint that I think we owe it to those people that died for us, to be able to do what we're doing right now. Okay. So once again, I'm sorry to keep going on about that, but it's very important to me, and I'm very sensitive about that. And I care. I really do care a lot about it. Being a former military person myself, I understand the sacrifices that people can make. Okay. I didn't make any, or I was there. I was lucky. I happened to be in a situation where I didn't have to go anywhere to actually have any combat, but I know people that did, and I totally understand it. Okay. All right. We got a lot on the agenda today. Like you said, it's Memorial Day, and we're going to talk basketball, of course. We got games on tap for today. We're going to take a close look at the line movement in those games, try to take a look and see in which direction the pros are going. The two games we're looking at is Philadelphia and the Wizards. That's the 76ers, of course. And the Utah Jazz against the Memphis Grizzlies. Those are the two games we're going to look at. And as far as baseball is concerned, we do have 3 picks for today. We're going to tell you about the Red Sox against the Astros, Rays against the Yankees, and the Angels against the Giants. Those are games we're going to talk about when we come back from our breaks. But as always, first thing we kind of do is take care of business, things that happened yesterday in the world of sports as far as betting is concerned. And so let's get down to that business right now. There were some auto races going on, Helio Castroneves won his 4th Indianapolis 500, and he pulled the kind of a Phil Mickelson. He was a 30-1 candidate after being dismissed as over the hill. There's a guy that they thought was too old not to bet on him, or maybe even to participate. Went off at 30-1, and he won. Larson won the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR Cup race as the favorite, around 9-2. So as far as auto racing, we don't go big into that because it's very complicated, things of that nature. But you just can't follow every single sport that goes on. So we try to keep in touch with the major sports like hockey, basketball, and baseball, and of course football during the football season, college and pros. Meanwhile, the National Hockey League, the favorites and the underdogs, they split yesterday, 1-1, as the Lightning, being a -105 on the money line, upset the Hurricanes in the second round opener, and the Avalanche at -170 routed the Golden Knights 7-1 in game 1. The favorites still lead, however, 25-19 in the playoffs. Home teams lead as far as how many games they've won, 25-22. The over-under split yesterday, 1-1, and the unders they still lead by 24-23. So that's a roundup for the National Hockey League. Meanwhile, over in the NBA, the favorites and the underdogs split 1-1 as the Lightning, a minus 105 on the money line, upset the Hurricanes in the second round opener. And of course, we're talking about NBA action as well. So we're looking at, let's go to Major League Baseball for a minute, because we seem to have some different data here that's coming in that we shouldn't. That seems to be recapping all over again. So let's kind of forget about that for a minute and go to the Major League Baseball, because the underdogs won 8-5, and the Blue Jays and the Indians in Game 1 closed as a pick'em as well. Now, the biggest upset were by the Tigers, plus 165 against the Yankees, and the Giants a plus 150 against the Dodgers. The favorites lead to, though their lead was kind of cut a little bit from 424, and that's at almost 56%. Meanwhile, 26 of them were pick'ems as well. The unders won 8-5-1 yesterday. You had a push on Kansas City and Kansas City game, and also well, kind of looking at the recaps and the ideas of Major League Baseball, which we haven't been really following all that well all along, because NBA has been getting all of the action. So it's kind of one of those Monday mornings where things are kind of going a little askew this morning. So as far as basketball is concerned, yesterday we had 4 games that we had talked about as far as in which direction the pros were going. You had the Knicks in Atlanta, you had the Suns and the Lakers, you had Brooklyn and Boston, and you had the Clippers and the Mavericks. We had the Knicks, and that was a loser, of course. The Suns and the Lakers, we had the Lakers in that game, and in Brooklyn against Boston, we had that game as well. And of course, the Clippers beat the Mavericks yesterday as well. So that's the story going on there. Let's take a break, and when we do come back, we're going to look at the games on tap for today. And of course, we're also going to take a look at baseball games as well as are on the agenda for today as well. So let's get the first break. Let's get that out of the way, get all the bugs taken care of, and we'll be back right after this message. Welcome back. We're back in the sports wagering zone on this Monday, this Memorial Day holiday. And of course, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of NBA games on tap and kind of get ourselves straightened out here. It's kind of one of those Monday mornings where everything is kind of a little askew. Well, some of the data that we've put together here has been kind of scrambled a little bit. So we apologize for the little little problem that we had earlier in the show. And it happens every now and then, not as often as it should. It shouldn't, but that's the way it goes. Just one of those days. It's Monday. It's a holiday. We've been really busy this weekend with baseball and taking a look at the basketball games. They're trying to keep in touch with what's happening in the NFL as well, because the free agency situation will soon come to an end. Julio Jones, where is he going? Rodgers, where he's going. So trying to keep up to date all that in our situation is not all that easy sometimes, especially when it all comes at you at one time. So let's look at 2 games that are on tap for the NBA as far as basketball is concerned. You got the Philadelphia 76ers and the Washington Wizards. Let's see which way the money is going in those 2 games, see which way the line movement's going, and of course in which direction the pros are going in this game as well. Now, this is game 4 of the Eastern Conference first round. The 76ers lead the series 3-0, and they look to sweep the Wizards and punch their ticket to round 2 if they win tonight. So after winning the opener 125 to 118, they didn't cover that game as 8-point favorites, if you remember. Philadelphia has covered as a favorite the last 2 games. The 76ers won game 2 by a score of 120 to 95. They covered in that game as 8.5-point favorites. And then they blew out the Wizards 132 to 103, and they covered it as 5-point favorites. Now, tonight's game 4 line, it opened with Philadelphia as a 7.5-point road favorite. Now, the public is hammering. They're out there betting the 76ers, expecting another easy blowout and an easy win to cover the spread. Now, the pro money seems to agree because we've seen the 76ers go up from being a 7.5 to an 8-point favorite. Now, keep this in mind. The playoff favorites are at 64% in this postseason. Playoff favorites, 64% this postseason. The road favorites are 8-1 against the spread. That's at 89%. Road favorites in the playoffs are at almost 90%. The pros have also targeted the under in this game as well, because despite most of the bets taking the over, and there's nothing unusual about that, because once again, the general public, they like a lot of action. They like a lot of scoring. They like the over. The total has dropped down from 230.5 to 229.5, which means that this is a reverse line movement on the under. The pros are on the under. So if you look at this game from that perspective, you see the Philadelphia 76ers are not only favored by the pros, but also by the general public as well. But the split comes on the over-under. The pros are on the under, and the general public is on the over as usual. Meanwhile, at 9:30 tonight, you have the Utah Jazz against the Memphis Grizzlies. This is game 4 of the Western Conference first round. The Jazz lead this series 2-1. Utah dropped the opener 112 to 109, but they've since won 2 straight games. They won and they covered both times, 141 to 129 in a game where they were 10-point favorites, and then 121 to 111 where they were 5.5-point favorites. But in tonight's game, game 4, the Jazz opened as a 5.5-point road favorite. The public is going and laying the points with Utah, yet we've seen this line kind of drop a little from 5.5 down to 5. So what this means that some of the pro money is grabbing the points with the home dog Memphis Grizzlies. So that has forced the odds makers to adjust the line slightly in their favor. Now, the pros are also banking on a higher scoring game this time. The total opened at 223.5, went up to 224.5, which means that the pro money is on the over in this particular game, because the over in this series so far is 3-0. The final combined scores are 221, 270, and 232. Those are the final scores of the first 3 games. Now, leading the series 2-1, the Jazz are minus $2,500 on the money line as favorites to go into round 2. The Grizzlies are at 1,100 on the plus side as long shots to come back and win the series. So in this particular situation, there's a little divergence here. The pros are on the Memphis Grizzlies. Meanwhile, the general public is on the Utah Jazz. And of course, as far as the over-under is concerned, the pros are on the over in this game, primarily because the first 3 games of the series, the over dominated, and they kind of feel that's probably going to happen once again tonight. So just recapping the 2 games we have on tap for today as far as the NBA selections go. In the Philadelphia 76ers against the Washington Wizards, that's a 7 o'clock game tonight, by the way. East Coast time, of course. And in that particular game, everybody seems to agree that the Philadelphia 76ers are the team to bet in this situation. However, when it comes to the over-under, the pros are on the under. And of course, the general public, as usual, are on the over. Now, once we come down to the next game, about 9:30 Eastern time, the Utah Jazz and the Memphis Grizzlies in that Western Conference game, what we're looking at is the general public. They love the Utah Jazz. They think that they're going to wrap it all up tonight. Meanwhile, the pros like the underdog, the Memphis Grizzlies, to come back. So there's a little change there. So as far as the over-under is concerned, everyone seems to agree that the over is the place to be. And again, the primary reason for that was the fact that so far in the 3 games that have been played, the over has dominated the situation. So that's the story as far as the NBA is concerned. Those are the 2 games we have on tap. Now, just to recap yesterday and how this little method of following the pros and which direction they go has been happening, we'll give you a quick idea as to what has happened as far as this system goes along since we started doing it. Yesterday, the Knicks against Atlanta, the pros had the Knicks. That was a loser. The Suns and the Lakers, the pros were on the Lakers, and that was a loser as well. Meanwhile, Brooklyn against Boston, the Celtics, they were on Brooklyn, and that was a winner. And of course, we had the Clippers over the Mavericks. That was a winner as well. So out of the 4 selections yesterday, we had 2 winners. We had 2 losers. Overall, since the playoffs began, we've had 23 plays. We had 18 winners, and that's 78%. Now, of course, that's really not unusual because we've been talking about how the favorites have been doing. And most of the time when it comes down to the playoffs, if you've noticed all through the years, usually the favorites do dominate. They do win. You know, we know most of the time who's going to wind up in the top 4, who's going to wind up in the top 2 even, okay? Because it's different than baseball. It's a lot different than football as far as one person, 2 people can affect the total outcome of a particular team and which direction they're heading. So those are the selections we've had so far. We gave you the selections for today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, take a quick look at Major League Baseball, give you an idea as to a couple of games that we've kind of taken a look at. And again, because we don't have much time to go into any detail, we're just going to go into give you an idea as to who the pros like in these 3 particular games. We're going to be talking about the Red Sox against the Astros, the Rays against the Yankees, and the Angels against the Giants. So we'll be back into the sports wagering zone after we take this second break. And like we say, if you're new to the show, you're listening for the first time, the thing is very simple. We take 3 breaks within the show. Each one is of about a 1-minute duration. So we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Had a rough night sleeping last night, busy the day before. So, the show kind of started out a little bit, a little muddled, whatever. Kind of tired, things of that nature. So I really want to apologize for that. But That's it. It's done. We did it. It's time to go on. So we're talking about baseball right now. 3 games on tap for today as far as baseball is concerned, and the pros in which direction they are going. Now, I got a lot of emails yesterday about not having any games yesterday. And of course, I just want to explain to everybody, we don't talk about any games if the pros are not making any picks. Now, there are some times where whatever patterns that evolve and that they come up with to make their selections, for some reason, there were none yesterday, so we weren't just going to make up 3 games or 2 games for you to take a look at. So in those type of situations, we just kind of pass and say, well, no games today. There's no betting. After all, in baseball, you got something every day. All right, you got sometimes up to 14, 15 games a day. So, there's enough there to choose from. So if you miss one day, the next day is coming along. It's not like in the NFL where if you don't have a game on Sunday and no game on Monday, you have nothing. You have to wait till the following week before you get another shot. Whereas in baseball, the next day comes along, and usually by then some things start to fall into place, into the patterns that they have developed. So anyway, the first game we're looking at is the Red Sox and the Astros. And in this particular game, the Jose Urquidy is going to be pitching against Eduardo Rodriguez. Those are the projected starters for the game anyway, between the Astros and the Sox. And the pros are on the Astros in this particular game. The Astros are favored to win the game, but not by much. It's kind of a very tight betting situation here. It's very close. They're at the minus on the money line, about minus 110. It could go either way, but as far as the pros are concerned, the Astros is the play in this particular situation. Meanwhile, the Rays are going to play the Yankees, and in this particular situation, the Yankees is set to face the Rays with Jameson Taillon and Rich Hill as the starting pitchers in this particular game. Now, it kind of looks like the Yankees are going to be the slight favorite, against the Rays. And of course, you have to understand something, that these big market teams have a lot of pricing deterioration as the day goes on. So if you like this game, the pros like the Yankees in this game. It's at around a minus 110, minus 20 area. If you can get it in there, and if you like this game and you want to bet it, you want to try to get in there as early as possible, because as the day goes on and the people start realizing it's the Yankees, it's the Rays, the Yankees, they may actually have the line movement going against you if you like the Yankees. Now, of course, if you're going the other way and you like the Rays, then of course you want to sit back and wait and see what's going to happen, because generally speaking, these big market teams will have deterioration in their prices because the casual bettors start coming in. They start overthinking the game, and they kind of, the Yankees, it's the Yankees, so they'll always get some attention at some point in time. So but if you can find odds of about minus 110, 115, that would be a good idea to get in at that particular time. Otherwise, there's a possibility it may go in the other direction. So meanwhile, the Angels against the Giants is the third game we're looking at. And in this particular game, you got Dylan Bundy on the mound. And of course, we like the Angels in this particular game. The Angels are the true underdog in this game. Last time we looked at it, they were about minus 120. This matchup is, pretty much a toss-up. It's pretty close, very close, in fact. But because we like the Angels, as far as the pros liking the Angels, it's that they're the underdogs. And you have to understand that most of the time, the pros do like to go with the underdogs, because that means you're betting against the public. So in this particular situation, the Angels are the bet. You're looking at plus 120, 130, again, depending on what situation is going on, depending on what sportsbook you happen to be dealing with. So once again, just to recap the 3 games on tap for today. The pros like the Astros in their game, They like the Yankees, and they like the Angels. Those are the 3 games for you baseball fans out there to kind of take a look at. Now, once again, you can look at it from any type of perspective you want. You can say, well, lately they haven't been doing all that well. The past few games, the past few days before yesterday, well, are on the losing side. So you may say, hey, they've lost enough times. Now it's time for them to regroup and recoup their money as far as the games are concerned. Or you can look at it through another window and say, well, they're on a downward slide. I think they're going to go down a little further, so I'm going to bet against them in these situations. Again, as always, we'll leave that situation totally up to you. So that's the story as far as baseball is concerned. And of course, just a reminder, if you want to get in touch with us, it's very simple. Just send an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the NFL. NFL gets a lot of action throughout the season, especially right this time of year where you're starting to look at the futures market as far as game totals are concerned, and as far as which games you kind of take a look at. Because right now, it looks like the Seahawks seem to be the number one team that are looking to pick up Julio Jones. It looks like the Rams have already dropped out of the bidding, so it's really down to two teams, the Seahawks and possibly New England. So you want to kind of keep that in mind, but it'll all come to an end. It looks like he doesn't want to stay in Atlanta. He's unhappy there right now. He's probably going to be going somewhere. So if you're going to be making any futures bets on any teams, take a look and kind of forget about these two teams until you see exactly what happens. Because wherever he goes, he's definitely going to have an effect on the totals for that team. So let's take that break. And when we come back, take a look at four teams we like, kind of take a look at with the data that we have on those four teams, give you an idea as to our thoughts on whether you should go over or under as far as the game totals are concerned. So we're going to take our final break, and we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the Sports Wagering Zone, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Also podcasting on most of your podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify, Google, you name it. We're on most of them. We're not going to talk about all of them, but we are on just about every major platform as well. So we talked about basketball today. We came up with the two games that the pros are looking at. We have three baseball selections from the pros as well. But now let's take a look at the over-under situations as far as game totals are concerned. We got a few teams we kind of looked at, got some data on them, trying to give you some thoughts and ideas as to how we're looking at these games. The futures market, many people don't get involved in the futures market. One big negative about the futures market is that, first of all, you're tying up your money for the entire season. Okay, so if you bet today or tomorrow, whatever it is in the next few days, it's just going to lay there until February. You won't be able to touch it. You won't know anything until that situation finally comes to an end and is finally finds out whether you win or you lose. So there are a lot of people that they use that as an excuse for not getting involved. And yet there's some positive aspects to getting involved in futures markets, especially when you're looking at Super Bowl futures. And we're going to take a closer look at those as we get closer to the time. The idea is you try to look at a team that you think is going to make it into the Super Bowl with some decent odds. It may not be your number one choice of a team that's going to get into the bowl, but there's something you look at the stats and you say, I really think this team is going to get in there. So this way, if they do get in and you have a pretty good odd situation, when it comes down to the Super Bowl, you can have it hedge, even though you may like another team as well. Okay. Whatever other team happens to get in, you can then hedge your bet and bet on either team you want, and you can't lose that way. Okay. So we'll talk more about that once that comes up. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some over-under as far as game totals are concerned. First of all, we kind of look at the Chicago Bears and kind of believe that under looks much better at 7.5. So right now it's at 7.5. We kind of like the under in this particular situation, because as much as I think that Justin Fields really has a good chance to make the Bears a better team than they were last year or even the past few years, I think what this team has on its hands for this coming season is a key position that can't be described as anything but a mess. All three quarterbacks probably expect to start. And that's really not a way to get started. Chicago was a surprising playoff team last year. They finished 8-8. They won 6 games by 7 or less points. Now, historically, looking at it from that perspective, that's not a good indicator of future improvement. Just 4 of the past 34 teams that accomplished that feat got better the next season. The average decline was almost 2.5 wins. Now, also, if you look at the middle portion of the Bears' schedule, they face a block of 5 straight games. They have Green Bay, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. Now, that's a tough road to hoe. And if they're fortunate enough to win even 1 or 2 of those, they have 5 other spots in which I kind of have them as underdogs of 3.5 points or more. So if you're looking for an over-under situation as far as game totals are concerned, we like the Chicago Bears on the under 7.5. Also, the Miami Dolphins, they're at 9.5. We kind of like the under in that situation as well. Because, I find it interesting that after they won 10 games in 2020 and being characterized as a franchise on the move, on the rise, those in the know in Vegas have reduced the Dolphins' expected win total by a game. So you kind of look at it from that perspective. They won 10 games last season. Everybody was talking about them, got all the hype. Yes, they're on the rise. They're getting better. They're going to be better. Well, if that's the case, why does Vegas come in with a number of 9.5? Okay, so this despite a 17th game in 2021, or they got one more game they're going to play also. Now, I'm not a big Tua fan, but from what I saw last year, he was more anxious to get the ball out of his hands as fast as he can instead of checking down where maybe he had a better advantage of something else happening. Now, that's not going to win consistently in the NFL. The Dolphins were fortunate as far as turnovers were concerned. They enjoyed an edge of 1/2 of a turnover per game. That was their average. Now, typically, teams that do that and fail to make the playoffs, they tend to regress when they come to their next season. So I'll call for some further growing pains for this franchise, because I see Miami playing as an underdog in the first 5 games. Those first 5 games will tell the tale. So if you're looking for a decent under, look at the Miami Dolphins under 9.5. Another under situation that we like, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're at 8.5. Now, It's not often that a team is projected to finish at 500 by the odds makers after winning its first 11 games from last year. But that's exactly what Pittsburgh is coming up in 2021. A lukewarm offseason franchise endorsement of Ben Roethlisberger. And of course, that's one of the situations. It didn't feel much for the final weeks of the season at the end, as if it were time for the Steelers to move on, of course. Then, despite the feel-good attempt to make a game of it in the playoff loss to Cleveland, that was just one-sided, and it was a postseason game that was one-sided, as you'll see if you look at it. The simple truth is this: the last 6 games of the 2021 season exposed a lot of what was wrong with this particular team. The Steelers no longer win by running the football. They don't win with their defense anymore. I got a lot of respect for the job that Mike Tomlin is doing, but it's really possible. Is it really possible to win with a style that really doesn't fit the coach that's running the team? Because perhaps the drafting of a running back like Najee Harris will kind of bring things back to normalcy as far as their running game is concerned. Pittsburgh was always known for their running game. They were always known for their stellar defense. I think it's telling that the power ratings show the Steelers as underdogs of at least 6 points in 3 of their first 7 games. Now, I see a continuation of 2020 coming up in 2021, so I'm looking at the Steelers and under 8.5. So those are 3 teams we kind of took a quick look at, kind of give you an idea as to something for you to kind of ponder, kind of start thinking about if you're interested in betting on futures as far as game totals are concerned. So try to give you some of this information, some of this data that we've accumulated, try to help you in that direction, to help you to make up your mind as to whether you want to even bet it at all, or maybe it looks like a good deal and you'll try it yourself. So, but again, as always, primary purpose of the show is to let you make the final decision. Of course, that's totally up to you. Now, as far as today's selections go, in the NBA, the pros like the Philadelphia 76ers against the Wizards. Not only the pros, but also the general public. Everybody seems to be on Philadelphia in this game. The difference is that the public likes the over in this game as far as the total amount of points is scored. The pros like the under in this game. And then the Utah Jazz against the Memphis Grizzlies. In this particular situation, the pros like the underdog. They like the Memphis Grizzlies. They think they'll bounce back in today's game. But in this game, they like the over. They believe it's going to be a high-scoring game. The general public feels that way also, so they kind of agree on that situation. As far as baseball is concerned, again, the Red Sox against the Astros. The pros are on the Astros. The Rays against the Yankees. Pros are on the Yankees. The Angels and the Giants, the pros in that game are on the Angels as well. So that's the story for today. We're finally done through the day. It's the end of Memorial Day. The whole weekend will be finished. Tomorrow's Tuesday. We come back fresh. The week starts actually tomorrow as far as people coming back home, getting to work, making their travel situations finally come to an end. We'll have a show again tomorrow. Once again, as usual, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. Saturdays and Sundays, we're on at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So once again, I want to thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for the emails that we're getting. We try to respond to as many as we can. Of course, it's been a weekend, so we have things to accomplish as well. But anyway, I want to thank you for listening, and we appreciate you listening to the show. In the meantime, we'll be back again tomorrow, live from the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network from Charlotte, North Carolina. So have a very pleasant and happy Memorial Day. Again, take a moment to think about the people that died to make it possible for us to be able to do what we're doing today. And also, If you're betting, I hope you have a profitable day as well. So until tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time, I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. Happy Memorial Day. We'll talk to you tomorrow again at 12 noon. Goodbye, everybody.